My name is Laura Asherman, and I am a documentary filmmaker, a sculptor, and general multimedia artist. And I also work at a university as an administrator and a professor. I've been making things for my entire life. So even when I was a kid, I had a little workshop in the basement of my house, and I was always playing with the glue gun. I was really lucky to get into ceramics, an after school ceramics class, I think at age 7. And so ever since then, I was making sculptures in ceramics and sculptures out of little found objects, making dolls, doll houses, imaginary worlds. And I came to filmmaking also as a kid. I used to play with my parents' video camera, with my friends' video cameras. And at age 13 or so, I got a job working at the local public access TV station in my city. And so this is like the AM radio of TV. And there I learned how to use the cameras, I learned how to edit, and then I came back every summer after that and taught the other incoming cohort of young people who was kind of doing the same training job program that I did. And I think my second summer working at CCTV, the TV station, I decided that I wanted to be a documentary filmmaker. And ever since then, I've just been creating documentaries and kind of honing my craft and my voice as a filmmaker. And more recently, in my creative world, I've started doing stop motion animation, which incorporates the sculptural practice that I've had for a long time with the filmmaking practice. So one of the projects that I'm doing here is a stop motion animated short experimental poetic documentary.
What is it about documentaries in particular that draws you?
I'm drawn to documentary because I think there are so many fascinating stories happening all around us. I am really curious about people, about subcultures, about what makes people tick, what I'm interested in intergenerational stories, family stories. And I like documentary because it's this, there are some constraints in the sense that you're working with often real people, but there's also so much room for experimentation and adding elements of fiction, playing with the genre a lot. So yeah, it's just always been documentary for me.
Can you talk about a foundation of your inspiration? Like, is it an experience, a person, a book that you draw from?
Um, as far as a foundation for my inspiration, I think it really depends on the project. I'm always asking people questions and looking for interesting stories in the world around me and with whoever I meet. I'm inspired by nature, especially being in a beautiful place like Hot Springs, North Carolina. Every morning when I go on a walk, I'm looking at textures on leaves, on trees, in the canopy. I also find that if I'm ever stuck, going to an art museum and looking at even prehistoric art will really get me thinking. I'm always taking photos. I'm inspired by animals. I'm inspired by humans' relationship with the world and the Anthropocene and humans' relationship with animals. Um, what else? I wouldn't say there was one particular person, but more people in general, interesting, quirky people. So here at Azule, for the last 2 weeks or so, my typical workflow has been kind of split between the two different projects that I'm doing here. So I've been working on an abstract sculpture, and then I've been working on a stop motion animated film. And so what's really helpful for me as an artist is to be able to have two different projects going that engage different parts of my creative brain. And so I'm really switching back and forth multiple times a day. So I'll animate for maybe 3 hours, and then I'll give myself a treat of sitting downstairs in the sunlight and working on my sculpture. Because the animation is a project that has a deadline and that has more weighing on it, that is, I don't want to say it's less fun, but it's definitely more tedious, and it's in a dark room. So the sculpture is always something that I can look forward to getting my hands dirty. There's less pressure on the outcome.
What's the best piece of advice you've received as an artist?
I think a good piece of advice that I received from another artist was that sometimes you don't need to know the meaning of a piece as you're making it or before you start making it. And that meaning can come to you through the creative process. It can come to you through other people's interpretation of your work. And sometimes you may not be aware of what's going on in your subconscious that's coming out through your artwork, and that's okay. And that shouldn't be a reason not to create what's on your mind.
Great, thank you. Would you care to show us what you've been working on?
Absolutely. Here we are in the music studio turned animation studio. This is my stop motion setup. And so as you can see, I have my camera facing top down. So all of my animations are happening right here. I have been, the last thing I was animating was some of this dirt here. I'm making a film that takes place in the desert. So I've been using dirt. That was my day yesterday. And then I have all sorts of different objects that I found around Azule and in this area. And then I also have collage cutouts from magazines. So as you can see here, I have some corn husks that I animated. I have these collage elements. I've been using string a lot. All these little mundane things that you would never really think about when I'm in the zone of animation. I'm always thinking, oh, that could be really cool on screen. And so I have this is also the green screen, so I just have this set up in a tray. It's really messy. But this allows me to key out the background in post. And then I have a large roll of green paper, so when I'm just animating an object, I'll put it on the green screen. I'll show you something I found at the Laurel Creek river the other day that you told me about. And this is a beautiful piece of rusty metal, and I was swimming in the river, and when I saw this on the shore, I was like, I need that. And so this, to me, it looks like mountains, it could be bullet holes, it could be just beautiful texture. So I've been having a lot of fun. This was like half a day was just shooting this thing. Then, yeah, I have more string, ropes, a bunch of cutouts. And yeah, it's funny with stop motion, you can spend hours and hours and just create about 6 seconds of video. So, the other thing I've been working on while I've been here has been this sculpture. And this is a totally new medium for me. I'm doing, what I created here started with 2 pieces of wood that I found in Camille's massive amount of wood scraps that she allowed me to use. And so I started with 2 geometric pieces of wood and attached those so that they are generally these 2 shapes. And then what I wanted to do was play with using a kind of curvy organic form on a very geometric base. And since I don't really do abstract sculpture work that much, this was a chance for me to kind of figure out that space and do some experimentation. So after I had my 2 pieces of wood, I used chicken wire to build this form. And then I filled that up with newspaper and then paper mache'd a layer on top of that. Then I made paper clay, or paper mache clay, which is a mixture of newspaper, joint compound, wood glue, flour. Yeah, that's about it. And then added on top of the paper mache, just kind of smoothing out those forms and creating these mountainous curvaceous lumps. And then the next thing that I did was a totally new process for me, which is I collaged using magazine cutouts over the entire form, and then I painted it, let that dry, and then I painted it with about 7 layers of different colored house paints and acrylics and spray paint. So I did layers of white, a green, a blue, an orange, more white, and then I let that dry, and then I took the sander to it to create this kind of pastiche of texture. I'll just show you what that looks like. Ooh. So, you know, I'm not sure if I'm done with it yet, but I think it's an interesting experimentation. I definitely learned a lot from this process. Things I would do differently next time I make one. And I really love the paper mache clay as a medium because it's totally accessible. Anyone can do it at their house. The materials are cheap. It doesn't need to be fired in a kiln. And you can have a lot of fun with it, and it's super durable. And I love this collage removal technique, so I definitely want to do more of that and maybe try different color paints. I think what I would do differently is also add more layers of collaged images. Sometimes you can see I sanded so much that it went all the way down to the paper clay, but that doesn't bother me too much. So yeah, this is my attempt at an abstract sculpture. Ta-da.